YouTube. Happy Victober to you. I hope it's going so well. I thought it would be fun as another Victober video to figure out how to press flowers. That was a thing Victorians loved. I'll go into more detail about that later. And so I am on a hunt now for some wildflowers to press. So I'm just going to drive around. I'm out in the suburbs staying at my parents' house as opposed to being in the city where there aren't many wildflowers. So I thought while I was here, I would take up that opportunity. So that is what I shall be doing, and I will be taking you along. It's about 15-20 minutes later. I did not have any luck just driving around in more rural neighborhoods. So there is a land reserve that I've been to before. It's really beautiful. I'm hoping I'll find some wildflowers there. Yeah, we'll see if I do. I'll let you see some of it because it's so beautiful. This is so neat. There are so many butterflies flying around, delighting in all the flowers. And then they have these birdhouses everywhere. Hi everyone. So I'm back to talk about the flowers that I found and then show you how they were pressed. I forgot to do a clip in between, like showing you how I was going to press them, but I just basically put them in really thick books and stacked a bunch of books on top of them. And I think it was around 4 days that I left them there. And then the thought occurred to me, I think as I was talking with my husband, like what would people do with pressed flowers? And he talked about them using them, putting them in books. And I thought, oh my goodness, such a like even more Victorian thing to do with these books. And there's some Victorian period drama that I've seen, and I can't remember which one it is, but some woman is looking sentimentally at a flower that a man has given her. And I thought even to make them look sweeter would be to put them in tissue paper. So then taking this to the next level, I realized flower language, or florography as it is called, also in this video. Then I could look at meanings of different flowers and match them to characters from some of my favorite Victorian novels. So it's all coming together. First, I'll show you the ones that I pressed. Unfortunately, there was only one of these that had a like symbol for the Victorians. So I think that means maybe these are ones that were like just grow in North America. I'm not sure. So the first one that I have for you, I'll fold the tissue paper off it. And I really love this. It's called Evening Primrose. So I think it was rather successful in pressing. I really like it. So this first one, Evening Primrose, was the only one that had a meaning that the Victorians had for it, and that was inconstancy. So I will show you all of these, and then I'll tell you what characters I would match them with. Then I love how the Queen Anne's lace turned out. I think that looks so pretty. And I was really surprised to not find a meaning for this one, but I didn't. And then we have here some milkweed. Love how this one turned out also. Milkweed. And then moving on, we have some ironweed. I love how that purple looks. Okay, so I will tell you the books that I have selected for this. First, for the Queen Anne's lace, which I have to grab. For the Queen Anne's lace, which since it's called Queen Anne's lace, couldn't believe it didn't have a symbolic meaning to the Victorians. But I thought this is a flower that you can kind of look at and think it looks rather simple, and you know, it doesn't have much much going for it, but it's a really beautiful flower that can often get overlooked, but I've always thought it was very beautiful. And so the character that I have chosen for this book is going to be Molly. The character I chose for this flower is going to be Molly Gibson from Wives and Daughters, because everyone gets so caught up with how beautiful Cynthia is, but Cynthia is the kind of beauty that you just kind of are swept away by it at first, and then you just might not be as swept away by it as time goes on and you get to know Cynthia more. So I will be using this as a bookmark in Wives and Daughters, and I just think that's so fun to add another element to love about your books. So that one goes there. Then for the milkweed, I thought this is just a lovely shade of pink. And again, kind of the same shaping, like look to it as the Queen Anne's lace would have. And so another somewhat overlooked sister, and that is, oh, that doesn't fall. Okay. So that is Margaret Ibbotson from Deerbrook. So there are two sisters, Hester and Margaret, and everyone when they first meet Hester are just kind of swept away by her beauty. But as they get to know Margaret more, once you know someone's inner beauty, you know, they can seem a lot more beautiful to you. And so I just love the character of Margaret. I like Hester as well, but Margaret's a bit more reliable. So I will be putting my milkweed in that. I want to reread this book now, just like I was thinking about it more. So that was a lovely reading experience from last year's Booktober. Okay, then next will be the Ironweed, the purple flower. And this, I feel like that shade of purple really stands out. And to be in a meadow with a bunch of, you know, kind of lighter colors, it really stands out. And so I will be giving my milkweed or ironweed bookmark to The Return of the Native, mainly thinking about Eustacia Vi, who is just one of Hardy's best creations. She just does not fit in Egdon Heath. She's this stunning, exotic looking beauty. And so I thought that color purple would really fit Eustacia. So I will be putting the ironweed in there. Then lastly, like I said, the evening primrose was the only one that I could find online, the symbol of it, that Victorians had a symbol for it, and it was inconstancy. So I will be giving the inconstancy flower. It will go in my beautiful copy that I forgot I had, found at my parents', of Wuthering Heights. I don't want to give spoilers, so I'll just say one of the characters would probably love to give some evening primrose to another one of the characters for their inconstancy. So yes, for those of you who have read it, I think pretty sure you'll know what I'm talking about. Okay, so then I did some research and looked up, you know, Victorians and floriography, and it just became a very big thing in, I had it written down. In 1819, the earliest flower dictionary came out, and that was one that came out in Paris. So it may have taken a while for it to get all the way over to England, but it did come out, and just the language of flowers became more and more of a thing in the Victorian era. And then there was a really famous flower dictionary that came out in 1879 called by Miss Corrothers of Inverness. And I think one thing that I saw a lot of websites saying was that, you know, in this age and era when manners are so emphasized and you don't ever want to say too much, people would then kind of say things through the flowers that they had. And send messages. And so they would assemble these special bouquets, and there would be secret messages from one lover to another, and even sometimes arranging clandestine meetings. So I thought that was very interesting. Then let's see. There were some famous kinds of bouquets that came out called Tussie Mussies or nosegays. Those were a really common thing that you would give to someone you were feeling amorous about, and it would be wrapped up in doilies. It was a very little one that could be held like this, wrapped up in doilies, and would have a lot of herbs, and then maybe one main flower as its showcase to show the main message you were meaning to convey. And it's interesting because certain flowers, it seems, depending on the color, it can have really different meanings. Like a white lily has a very different meaning from an orange tiger lily. So it was really cool to look up all of these different meanings. And it says, great care was taken to combine the selection in such a way that its meaning was accurately expressed. Tussie mussies were also known as nosegays. They were sometimes carried at nose level to block out some of the unpleasant odors common during the Victorian era. Suitors presented tussie mussies to their ladies and watched to see if they were held at heart level, which indicated happiness and acceptance. Tussie mussies held pointing downward were a sign of rejection. So yes, I found all of that very fascinating. And then I had a lot of fun with the next part of selecting these flowers for different characters in some of my favorite books. So I told you all about the inconstancy, the milkweed, the ironweed, Queen Anne's lace, all of that. But I would say another character that I almost gave the evening primrose, the yellow flower for inconstancy to, would be a character in The Small House at Allington. So I'm doing these to be spoiler free. So I will not say what happens in The Small House at Allington. I won't give anything away, but if you've read The Small House at Allington, you'll probably be nodding in agreement that I gave someone that. Okay, then the next flower I found very interesting is Monkshood, which meant beware, deadly foe is near. And the first thing I thought is for the woman in white. I won't even say like who, the flower should be for, but there are some deadly foe in the woman in white. And so Monkshood would just be blooming everywhere. Then we have zinnias, and that would be lasting affection and constancy. And John Ridd and his love for Lorna Doone in Artie Blackmore's novel, Lorna Doone. He definitely gets this. His love is just so constant and undying, and he would just move mountains for Lorna if he could. It's very sweet, and someday I will revisit Lorna Doone. It's a lovely book, and yeah, I definitely think that was who I thought of first for that. Then we have the Snapdragon, which means deception. And first book I thought of for this was Lady Audley's Secret. Yes, definitely. There's much deception and plotting going on in Lady Audley's Secret, and I highly recommend it. Then moving on to the Spider Flower, which means, are you ready? Elope with me, which I thought, if you actually want to elope with someone, are you really going to tell them through a flower? If you're going to be that bold, you think you'd just say it. But guess if you wanted to use a flower, you could. So who I thought of for that was The Widow Barnaby by Frances Trollope. Now, I'm not saying that it necessarily happens in this book, but this book is so over the top. It's unreal. And The Widow Barnaby, that book, I'm sure if it's going to happen in any book, it would be in that book because it's just so dramatic and plot heavy. Yes, definitely an amusing book. Then the next one is the Sweet Pea, which means goodbye. So a departure. And again, spoiler free, but this should be given in Jane Eyre. There is a very sad parting in Jane Eyre, and it would definitely be appropriate for a bouquet of sweet peas to be around. Next, I saw that I found interesting, the Anemone, which this is very intense. It means forsaken. And instantly, it was not hard to come up with something for this. Instantly, I thought of Miss Havisham from Great Expectations. This woman lives, she thrives off her bitterness of being forsaken. So yes, she definitely needs many, many anemones to decorate with. Then the Petunia, which means resentment and anger, which of course my mind was blown for Harry Potter, resentment and anger. But then again, that's another one that could be given in Wuthering Heights. Resentment, anger, there's quite a lot of that going in Wuthering Heights. So I think I can have the Evening Primrose and the Petunia be given to Wuthering Heights. Then the Lily, which the white lily means virginity and purity. And without a doubt, this would be Mina Harker in Dracula. So I know a lot of people kind of like eye roll about the exaggerated gender roles in this. It just didn't bother me. I think because I was so just like rooting for them to survive Count Dracula. And so since it was really exaggerated, like Count Dracula's very evil, Mina Harker's very good and pure and noble. I think it kind of worked for the story, but she is like very much the like pure woman. And so Mina Harker would definitely get some white lilies. Then we have a fern, which there are many different kinds of ferns, but there seem to only be one fern, and that is a secret bond of love, which is in a fair few of Victorian novels, I'd say, but the one that I thought of was in Middlemarch, and I won't even name names because, you know, we don't want to give anything away. But for those of you who have read Middlemarch, hopefully you're nodding in agreement. Next is the crocus, which symbolizes cheerfulness, and they are so pretty, so I thought that was very appropriate. And I thought of Mr. Dick in David Copperfield. He is one of my favorite all-time Dickens side characters. And when David Copperfield arrives and he's just filthy and he's an orphan and Betsy Trotwood has no idea what to do with him, and she asks Mr. Dick, who is kind of this kind of bumbling type character, but he says we should wash him. And he has some surprising common sense. I just love him. And then lastly, the bluebell, which means humility. And I definitely think this should go to Roger Hamley from Wives and Daughters. He is such a, I think, like a well-rounded individual, because he does love to be in like the great outdoors, but he also ends up, you know, learning a lot more, pursuing a higher education, but he doesn't take himself too seriously, and he's very down to earth, and he just definitely shows a lot of humility. So I think he's very deserving of that flower. I hope you enjoyed this really different kind of video. I had so much fun thinking about what flowers to award to what books or characters, and let me know if you thought there were some that I missed or I should have awarded to a different book or character, and I will be back for another Victober video soon. Bye.